We'll wait few more minutes before starting. Okay, everyone. So I think we should start. So today is 22nd of August, and this is the Meshery build and release meeting. Uh, so first starting about Meshery. Meshery is the 10th fastest growing open source or CNCF project. Uh, and so to as a housekeeping item, we would like to start with people who are new to this meeting, and you can start by introducing yourself. So let me see if anyone's new. Amit, are you new by chance? New to this call?
Yes, I'm new to this build and release meeting.
Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself so that everyone can know what field you are working in and where are you from and everything?
Okay, so my name is Amit. I am from India, currently in my the last year of the college, and I did some contribution to the Meshery UI and also in a Meshery CTL in the written in a Go. So and I love to contribute in the Meshery UI specifically.
I, I, I think your voice just broke. We are unable to hear you.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Okay.
So I think again your voice broke. So if you have anything else about you to introduce, so you can use the Zoom chat to introduce yourself. And so as in standing agenda item, we have the Meshery test plan. So we'll get back to it at the end of the call. Starting off with the first agenda item. So it's from, okay, it's also an agenda item. So it's about the playwright E2E test. So is there Abid on call by chance? Or Senthil, do you want to explain this playwright test so that everyone else on the call can have overview of what this is?
Stop, I couldn't see your screen. Maybe please reshare. Now season.
Uh, you want me to reshare?
Now season.
Okay. So the first attempt, or it would be Jaren. Jaren, could you explain the
Okay.
E2E test? Or Senthil, any one of you? Please, Senthil, go ahead.
I think Jared is ready for
Exactly.
Senthil to go first. And Senthil,
Yeah.
we can't understand you at the moment, but good. So folks, you have to listen to me say this for a third time, probably. And that is, we want to publish our test results. And so Jaren's in specific, but a number of you have been working on enhancing the sort of UI-centric end-to-end tests that get run using Playwright as sort of the tool of focus. And there have been a number of improvements about how that's done. You guys are going to talk about some of them. Part of those improvements have been capturing the outcome of the tests, sort of the disposition of the tests. We want for those results to be self-documenting, and that's a super easy thing to do. Super easy. You guys have already done the hard part of getting some tests written, getting a common practice going, collecting up the test results. One of the things that you need to ensure that you're doing, Jaren's, is, and you're leading us in that way, Jaren's is, to just format some test results in the same way that these are formatted. which is, which is no problem for you. It's just a simple YAML document, just a small YAML doc that, if you were to look at an example of it, it would be in the Meshery repo under the docs section. There's an underscore data folder. Oh, I think I misspoke. Probably the underscore compatibility folder. And this is where there's a compatibility matrix or a support matrix. And right now it only represents Meshery adapters and all of the tests that they run. And so it's high time that we greatly expand the number of columns or the number of rows, or just have a matrix eventually that's fairly fancy in terms of what you're wanting to look at. Right now, this one is sort of set up to let you look at compatibility across Kubernetes versions for each of the Meshery adapters. That's great. That's helpful. That's excellent. But well, what about Meshery server? Like we assume Meshery server is doing just fine on those, these Kubernetes versions. Maybe there should be a column for Meshery server or Meshery CTL or Meshery UI, or the information could be presented in a number of different ways. But if you consider that Meshery as a project has a number of components, Jarens, that one way of thinking about those components in your mind is there's a reference under the reference section, there's an error codes page. And the error codes are just various issues that can occur as someone is running any of these components. So this first table has, well, components by type, so to speak. Component type. So it's like adapter. There's an adapter. Meshery server is listed as a sort of a generic component. Okay, fine. It doesn't really matter what type they are, but the point being, there are a lot of components in the project. And for the error codes, we keep track of issues that they might run into on a per component basis. Fine. So anyway, don't get lost in the error code topic. I only brought it up just to say Meshery is comprised of a number of different components. Great. So if we go look at the compatibility matrix, we're showing 9, 10, 11, or whatever, components here. But we're missing some components. Meshery CTL is a component. Meshery server is a component. Meshery UI is a component. And so maybe they should have their own individual columns listed. So Jarens, since we've talked about this a couple of times, and you've been making great progress on the end-to-end testing in general, and I guess the quote unquote, the framework, so to speak, that's being built out for that. How does this suggestion strike you, the self-documenting concept?
In the playground, they have a project base. So basically we can like testing for the adapter only and put it on the different project for the testing. And we will generate the custom reporter with the markdown format for it. And trying to hit the checkout, and we check each version of them. So I think that's how I will approach it.
Yeah, look, if you don't mind, if you go back to your last tab, the one that has the markdown file for the tests, if we look at one of these for just a moment, just an example, and we look at maybe the raw or All right, so here's the test result. This says the way it's set up, at least the way that I understand that it's set up right now, is that one test result per file. So we would have lots and lots and lots and lots of files. Okay. You could store many test results per file or something if you wanted to get fancy, but just the way that this is set up right now is like it's tracking what Meshery component it is, what version that component was at, the timestamp. It's all very, you guys don't need me to explain it other than like the tests section. These are the assertions. These are the things that are being tested in that run, in that check. And so for Meshery adapters, the way that it's set up is that a Meshery adapter would deploy some infrastructure. And this particular adapter would deploy a pod called Cilium and another pod called Cilium operator. The test that these run, so these are not playwright based or what have you, these just, they deploy a Minikube, they deploy Meshery, they deploy the Cilium adapter, then they invoke an operation of that adapter, like deploying Cilium. Part of that deployment means that you would have these pods. And so it's all the test does is just check for the presence of the pod and the status of that pod. In this case, looks like the operator pods were completely missing and that the Cilium pod was maybe present but not running. So then they just recorded the overall status of the test as failing. So Jarens, this is what I'm asking for, is for you to uplift our framework a little bit, where we're keeping track of the tests that we run within Playwright to output them in a markdown file format and auto commit them to this repo under new folders for Meshery UI, Meshery Server, Meshery CTL, or yeah, to follow the format that's here. If over time we figure out like, this format doesn't work well, we have a billion files, or this format doesn't work well, broken down by component, it's kind of awkward in terms of how we test. Like we're really focused on functional testing. And so it would be better if we broke this down by functional area, like performance management, which is something that Meshery does. You can generate, run a test, a performance test, a load test, and so we can. So anyway, I'm just saying later on, if the format doesn't work, it's easy to switch that up and switch up the presentation of that. So I'll try to land the plane one more time, and that is in the output of our E2E tests that we have right now using Playwright. Can you ensure that we create a markdown file for, create a new folder called Meshery Server, or create one called Meshery UI, I don't care. Create a markdown file each and every time that we run a test and auto commit that file to a folder in here.
It will need to directly commit on the main branch, or it need to open the PR when it releases or before the release.
Yeah, wait, what? I just couldn't understand what you said. Say it again, if you would.
So it will update it directly to the main branch, or we need to open it on the PR. So before it get released, so sometimes we want to fix it.
Oh yeah, it's a great question. At the moment, like, great question. Whatever the answer is, I just want to make sure that you do this, because terrible jokes and a lot of sarcasm come out if we talk about it a fourth time and it hasn't been done. Then I'll start to ride you, in the best of ways. Great question. Anybody have any opinions? So the question is, for the test results that we publish, if you go back to this matrix, so now everybody, hopefully, or most of us, have used a piece of software where, well, anytime you've installed a piece of software, any software, the OS, the super small kernel, some application space, anything, they all have prerequisites, whether it's a prerequisite, a minimum requirement, and a compatibility matrix for either the hardware or for the OS you're installing it on, or for some other dependency or whatever. Like, all software relies on something else, and they all have compatibility matrix or prerequisites or whatever, installation requirements, whatever you want to call it. And since all software that's worth its salt is a living software, rather, it changes all the time, and software around it changes all the time, and the hardware around it changes all the time. So like ensuring compatibility is a big old deal, and it's pretty dynamic. Jaren's question just now is, at what point should we persist the test results? Because the end-to-end tests that are being run are run each time that someone opens a PR. Maybe that PR gets merged, maybe it gets closed. So the way that if you, Mr. Shlok, if you were to, can you scroll down the page a little bit? Just from a, all right. Huh. If you scroll down further. So good. So there's a couple of different summarizations, by the way, of what happens. I think the quick answer to your question, Jarens, is only on merge would we persist the test results would we self-document the test results rather. We might persist the test results in GitHub for whatever reason but in terms of like auto committing them back to master, which is what we want to do, we would do that on merge of a PR. Now, by the way, for all of us that are here and learning or not learning, but understanding the build and release process for Meshery as a project, some of us recall that there are two release channels. Shlok, if you click on one of these, yep. All right, if you go back to click on CPAS test results, on the right-hand side, there you go. At the top of the, okay, and then that's it. You don't have to move. Good, yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about. Good. The intuition on Shlok is just amazing. There are two release channels, stable channel. Everybody kind of knows what that sort of indicates. Like if you don't want to see bugs, but maybe not the latest features, go stable. If you want to see the latest features, but maybe a bug or two, go edge. So for contributors, a lot of times you find yourself on edge because you're focused on features and how they work and that. For users, a lot of times they find themselves unstable, but people switch around and it's really, really easy to switch the channels between what release you're subscribed to, what channel you're subscribed to. So I'm bringing this up to say that for some of us, we recall that every time a pull request is merged into the main branch, into the master branch, an edge release is made. We post-merge or on merge, we build Meshery's components and they're the relevant artifacts and push them out. Generally, that means to Docker Hub, or it minimally means to Docker Hub, but it also might mean to other places depending upon what component it is. So that means that every time that a PR merges, we would persist the test results because there would be a new edge release for that component. Maybe for multiple components depends on what the PR is. Cool. So good. And the framework is already there, Jarens, for auto committing to the repo, for the edge channel and stable channel triggers and all that. That's all that that's all there. What you would do is, in fact, you really want to just reuse an existing workflow. Each of the adapters, there's like, at one point there was like upwards of 14, only 10 of which were sort of stable. And so there's about 10 adapters right now. So each adapter self-documents. It runs the tests and pushes the results. At some point, we finally got a little wiser and started reusing workflows. So I think there's been some centralized workflows for the publication of test results that should be in the Meshery repo, whereas each of the individual adapter repos might have a slightly different workflow for performing tests. Very, very, very similar, a couple of different style tests. And at the end of which they're like, okay, well, here's my They reuse central workflow to publish. So should be a small item for you to be able to add a new column and for us to start publishing. It's always hard to tell by your forehead whether or not you're like in violent agreement or completely confused. What do you think? Is that feasible?
One more question regarding
Yeah.
of can we get all the feedback inside of the website, or we need to check on the CLI as well for it to up and running?
Man, I missed the first part of what you said.
Uh, can we get all the feedback inside of the website adapter, or we need to check on the CLI as well?
Oh. Um,
Because sometimes probably need a different testing tool for it. I'm not sure.
this is super easy. Like the thing I don't like the thing that we're talking about is super easy. I don't recall if when we run the tests for these Meshery adapters, generally we use Meshery CTL to perform a number of like deploy Meshery to invoke an operation on the adapter and that kind of a thing to connect to Kubernetes. We're generally using Meshery CTL, but it doesn't really matter. Like the Playwright centric tests are sort of driven by Playwright, or they're technically driven by GitHub Actions. At the end of each test that's we run using Playwright, however it is that we want to break those down, you're already breaking down the test. Like right here is the formatting of that markdown file at like line 50, line 60, line 52. Like right here, these are the assertions. Like you don't have to follow this format, by the way. But this is the only sort of difficult part is this tests section. It's just what are we asserting that needs to be true in order for a Playwright test to pass? You've already determined that, right? Right? You fail or pass a test in Playwright, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. So is it okay? It's like leading a horse to water. It's like so okay. Do you want further explanation, or do you want to ask that question again, or
I'm good.
nice? Yeah. So some of this metadata here, like SM version on line 60, it's like that means service mesh version, which means what infrastructure is that adapter orchestrating? Well, look, that doesn't exactly fit what the context that each of the Playwright tests are running. So if we need to change around this format, no problem. It can just be made more generic, and you can add stuff, remove stuff. If and when there are changes made to this, we just need to propagate those to the other adapter workflows. No big deal. We're in total control of however it is that we want to present the test results in Meshery docs. Yeah. Good. Cool. So does anybody have questions, comments that other people want to help here? Jaren's, how do you feel about it?
I had a thought means the columns are cluttered for most of the compatibility metrics. So how would we add a new column over here?
Yeah, say it again. Most of the columns are what for the
Uh, so
compatibility?
so it's cluttered over here. It's
Yeah, dude.
a lot.
Yeah. I don't know if you need me to tell you that, Shloka. Do you need me to tell you that? Okay.
No,
You
but
could
uh,
overflow. Yes, yeah. Good. Maybe you were just said, you know what? I should stop talking. I think I need to go
no, I
take
was
my
suggesting because that would be the issue when someone will write
yeah,
the test.
clearly, very
So
obviously.
yeah,
Yes, I get it. Yes, totally very I don't know. What should we do?
overflow.
Overflow, that would work. It also sucks to scroll to the right or left. Yep. Or change the, swivel it, right? Like make people first have a drop down, choose what component they want to, So by the way, guys, what we're looking at right here in this compatibility, this, by the way, this compatibility matrix, it's okay that we're taking like half the meeting or more on it. It really is super important. It really is like one of the big items for build and release. It's certainly not the only one. This right here is a high level summary. It's a super high level summary of like the status of a given adapter. So what's being presented, do you guys know how long it took, by the way, for an individual who's now one of the maintainers on Surface Mesh Performance? About 2 years of me explaining this, which is in part why I have not much patience left for it. Like Aditya Subedi, he got his first job at Fast Retailing in Japan because of all of his time spent here and his amazing story and all that. But I could have just reached through the monitor and choked him. And I told him that I don't know how many times. Anyway, it's a thing of beauty. This is a high level summary. What it says is if you hover over any of the, like the green or the red, and good, you'll see percentages other than just 0 or 100. Some of them might be like 70 or 80. Like some of the tests passed, some of them didn't. But this is taken from that markdown and then a little bit of JavaScript to summarize it and figure out what's green and what's not, or there should be some that are like 70 and 80 and stuff. At some point, there's a logic in there that says, well, if it's over 80, then we consider it passing or whatever. So each of these is clickable though. And as you click it, it drops into that specific component, Meshery linker D adapter. Each of the tests that were run on the days that they were run, under the certain circumstances that they were run, etc. And and so any amount of this can change. If you go back for a second, just so that not everybody loses their way. I'm sorry, if you click on to go into any one of the tests from here, if you enable edge channel, okay. So there's a little bit of a UI component snafu. It's like, wait, are we looking at both edge and stable? We might be. It's not entirely clear. Uncheck one if you would. So we're only looking at edge now. I know, it's a little weird. You don't see the Kubernetes version right here. When you click on a row, it does show you the Kubernetes version, I believe. Anywhere on any of that. Maybe that would be something you want to column. Maybe not. I don't know. Figure it out. Maybe the columns need to be changed. Like, yeah. Yes, Shlok, to your point. Any of this can be changed in terms of its presentation. If you go back to that high-level summary, there's here's the big table. If you go to the table down below, so this one's organized by sort of indexed by Kubernetes version, right? The first table. The second table is more like, I don't know what it's indexed on, probably latest test run. And so we have been neglecting and neglecting and neglecting the adapters because we've been building more and more and more of this stuff into Meshery server, which is maybe why some of the tests are older. Cool, but if you click on any of these rows, so this table, it's all the same data, just sliced slightly differently. This one lets you choose, did you want to look at console, Istio, Kuma, Linkerd, blah, blah, blah. And that's, but the other table that you clicked on up above, it said, oh, you just want to look at Istio, so I'll take you to just Istio. And so, yeah, it's all the same data. It's just like a big fat pivot table presented, a few predefined pivot tables that you can. Cool. So Jarens would like some help, even though he didn't articulate it out loud, like, hey, it's, everybody needs a partner in crime even for the small stuff. Because there's going to need to be some changes here as we go to add that stuff. Overflow is a real quick answer, but eventually it's probably more like some other selectors, some other like, hey, here's the drop-down list for what component did you want to look at, and then you can look from there. And if you were to visit the Kubernetes Prow system. Kubernetes has a test harness and framework, and they named it Prow,
Uh,
Prow. I don't know where it is. I'm just gonna point out what those test result dashboards can look like. If you've looked at like a compatibility matrix as a user, VMware compatibility guide. Do you know how many products VMware has? Like, nope, it's not just, yeah, VMware was the name of a company. And they had, dear Lord, 80 something products. And there's all kinds of different products that they have, just even different categories. And then when you go in there, all kinds of different releases and et cetera. And as you go through it, this is their compatibility guide. So they're helping figure out if you're running this hardware or doing that thing, then what software works on what like hardware and all that. And yeah. Sorry, I thought they had a different, this might be what anyway, it goes on and on and on and, like forever, unbelievable amount of data. That's just like an example of what something looks like. We don't have to have that. That isn't the goal. The goal here is just to get just to make sure that we're starting to capture and report on those test results. If you look at OpenStack as a project and how much testing they've done and the test framework that they have, they gave it a name too, because the test framework is like, it's a project unto its own. In Kubernetes, they gave it a name as well, because it's a project unto its own. And so this one in Kubernetes, they called it Prow. It's got a whole architecture. It's got its own docs, all this, like, geez, holy smokes. I'm just trying to find this super, super ugly dashboard for what the test results look like. They use Garrett, just like OpenStack does. Does anybody know? Anybody familiar with Prow? Do you know where the wow, it doesn't jump out to me. They have sequence diagrams for how that, wow. Oh, goodness. It's something very easy to reference. And it's just terrifically ugly. The dashboard. This is just like red and green squares all over it. Do one more search, then move on. Kubernetes Prow dashboard, perhaps. Prow.k8s.io. All right. Oh, they improved its ugliness. It used to be a lot worse. And so what do they have here? It looks like they have test jobs. Maybe those are for different components, or they have for different features and stuff. Like, I'm not saying, yeah, you can restart the tests and all that from here. Like they're, it's very, very powerful. There's so much data for them to aggregate about all the compatibility and for Meshery, it's, a few hundred integrations. So we're on our way to needing to track this stuff. Self-document. Parting thoughts. Jarens, are you good? Is this an exciting challenge or is this a crushing challenge?
Maybe just scaling it a bit. I still not sure how to scale the test
Sure.
for now.
Sure, I'm with you. One of the things that you can, so to overcome that, start to break down the challenge into super small, tiny little bite-sized, baby steps. The smaller, the better. Because and one of those is just when you look at the tests that are being performed today with Playwright? Maybe you can answer this question right now. There are any number of tests that get run. How do we identify a test and its result?
We can count but there are two cases like flanky, and I don't know how to put it on the right way. Do you have like weight for each of them? Because they are a category like flanky, success, and failed, and timeout as well.
Yeah, say it again. You're saying foreign key, file, what?
Flanky, pilot, and I think timeout as well.
Wait. All right. Okay. Oh man, maybe we're not on the same page at all. When we want to run a test using Playwright and verify certain functionality is working within Meshery or it is not working, an example of a test is you're on the dashboard and you can click on node and see data. Like that would be a valid test. Do you see data, any number of records or what have you, in these dashboards? Right? That's a valid test. Is that right?
Yeah, it's valid.
Okay, good. And do we do that test today?
Yeah, we can do it. We can check but I think like for Kubernetes, there are a problem, I think, for uploading outside of the Kubernetes. I think network is, but I think it won't be a problem if we have them inside of Kubernetes.
Yeah. Okay. I got the first part of your answer. Man, it's a bit difficult to understand you actually. I got the first part of your answer, which is no, we don't run this test currently, but that's easy enough for us to add. And then the second part of what you said, not entirely sure. Like, yes, when we run the workflows, when we run the tests, we will spin up a small Minikube cluster and can interact with Kubernetes and deploy both Meshery and Meshery operator, which means we'll get mesh sync going, which means we'll get Kubernetes data back. Is that what you were concerned with?
Basically, the Kubernetes test before is a file because of unable to upload the file, I think. But you will figure it out.
Yeah, that's where we're not. I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't sharing my screen earlier. Just to be clear, I was just saying, hey, if we're on the Meshery dashboard and we wanted to use Playwright to confirm that, these dashboards are populated, that could be a test, right? It
Oh,
could be a
yeah,
test. Okay.
it
Or
will
that,
easy to
cool. Or, a test that if this action is invoked, that a response is received. And so that constitutes a test, I think. This checking to see if there's data here constitutes a test, right? Like the assertion for this test might be there is data, like there are more than 0 rows, one or more rows. That's the assertion. And if we get data back, it passes. The test passes, right? I'm just making it up, but it could. Same here is, oh, we're testing the functionality. If we get back a message of type success, then the test passes. So I was just saying, hey, in order to make this a little bit easier, is my screen still not sharing? Is my screen sharing or no? So everybody's looking at themselves, looking at themselves.
No, it is shared.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So I was just saying, in order to break it down into baby steps for this self-documenting thing, is to first just define what it means, what a test is for us, what an end-to-end test is. And that's like, oh, okay, for us, it's a piece of functionality. Maybe it's data in a table, maybe it's clicking on a button. It's a piece of functionality, whatever that is. And then there's an assertion that says, this is what should happen when you click the button. whatever that assertion is, whatever that test is, fine. And then so we already do all that, right? And we already record or we already persist the outcome of that test. It passed or it didn't. And that's just, we're already doing that. All our next step then is just, oh, well, we have a certain markdown file format, like YAML format currently, that the compatibility matrix interprets and parses that data to just build those web pages. And it's very straightforward, by the way. That we were just saying, oh, it's very service mesh centric, very adapter centric. Hey, we should probably refactor that a little bit. And who knows what that needs to be refactored to, something that will just get figured out as we go. And so what I'm saying is a first step can be to take that file format that we reviewed in raw format that Shlok was sharing, right? Yes. Right, Jarens?
We don't need to make it in the markdown format then,
Yeah, we got to
because
put
it's
it in a
already
markdown format.
out.
Yeah, we do. I mean, like Playwright doesn't have to do that. The existing, I'm so glad we're talking about this because there's no way that we would be successful otherwise. Yep. So Shlok had shown that each of the adapters have workflows that will create a markdown file, and they are all in the same like 10 or 12 line format. So when we go to just any example adapter, go check out its workflows. Maybe I'll just go to the code over here and look at the workflow. End-to-end tests, all right? That's one. Could be it. So we go down to that, like right here, saying, okay, it's prepared. This is how it's defining its test and saying, I'm going to assert that these resources are available, and I'm going to look for those, and I'm going to do my test. And this doesn't have to be a Playwright thing, right? When it gets done and it is performing its test and it's all done, this little bash script or whatever, like this little run, it just says, okay, well, I'll just create a JSON file, and I'm going to format the test results in this format. This is the format that we saw that was in the docs that was behind the compatibility matrix. I'm pausing for confirmation that you're with me or not.
Or I just need to check if the test file and then send the data to the JSON format.
Yeah. Yeah. And technically this isn't even JSON. This is YAML. This is you're a better engineer than this. The work that you've been doing here is better than this crap work right here. This is pretty crappy for a bunch of different reasons, not least of which is the fact that they're calling it JSON when it's actually YAML. But yep, that's it. It's just, you just need to reformat just persist the test results in our own format. We own the format. And this is what we were very adapter focused at the time. So we said, okay, well, here's the pertinent information. This test ran under this Meshery server version. So to start with, just to make it super easy on yourself, just use the same format, fill in what makes sense, what doesn't, just start to publish, start to auto commit. Because like here's a step in the workflow. It's a Git committer. So it checks out the docs, the Meshery docs. It adds the changes and then signs off, commits, and And so you'll see, yep. Does that make sense? It's just, so yep, that first step is basically this. And this is a terrible way of doing it. This is not, but it's fine for now. And once you get comfortable and others on the call who listen in and want to participate, there's just all kinds of ways to enhance this and make it better and centralize the format. And it's just like eventually if Meshery, this 10th fastest growing CNCF project, if we get to like 5th place and we still have 300 something integrations, it's not just the fact that we need to dedicate a meeting every other week to build and release. It's like, no. There's full-time maintainers that are focused on championing this area. We're going to have our own prow. It'll build and grow because if we're going to track the compatibility of all of those integrations, eventually all those integrations, right now you're not focused on, and we're not focused on tracking the compatibility in that way with each integration. We're just focused on, can we run a performance test? Can you sign in? Do you see data in the, can you click on a chip? That's all wonderful and beautiful. And we'll have a long list of like functional areas that are all good to go and work and all that. Like, like it might be that next week, if you've spent some time, you might get really comfortable and come back and say, hey, I figured it out. I know that we're trying to be self-documenting and that we just need to grab the output of our tests, put them into some kind of a YAML file so that we can display it on a web page so that everybody can go there and just look at it and understand, that everything's kosher, all features work under this setup or whatever. And you might come back and say, yeah, this is total junk, doesn't work for a feature-centric compatibility matrix or a feature-centric dashboard. Like, hey, also, Lee, I would tell you that like this the title compatibility matrix, like that's very much about Meshery as a piece of software interfacing with all these other projects or hardware or operating systems or Docker engine versions or Kubernetes version. Like it's all about us as a project and how we are compatible with our ecosystem. That's its own thing. And then over here, we're talking about end-to-end tests with just the list of all the features that Meshery has and whether or not those are passing based on like a Meshery release. So, they're related concepts, but, different enoughly that, I've gone ahead and just made a brand new format here because this just didn't, that's like external compatibility, and the end-to-end tests that we do with Playwright, that's about internal functional, functionality or user centric. Yeah. So now the two are related, like, because, maybe all the functions and features pass and are all good to go on the latest release, except if you're running on Kubernetes 131 or something like the related, we might, but are you with me at all? Like the lack of feedback is just too many.
Yeah, I'm good.
Nice. Wait, say it again. What do you think your first step's going to be?
I will try to hit the JSON and send it using the artifact.
Nice. Yeah. Good. Great. Yeah. Even if all you do is just have a file that has one that just says passing and you commit that, fine. Like it's not going to hurt anything. We're not going to display it on the docs because nothing on the docs knows how to read that. That's fine. Like, yeah, just maybe a sequence diagram will help solidify kind of how this is working. But does anybody else have suggestions? Is anybody else interested in this area? And actually, I should say, are you interested and are you capable in this way? Anybody? Bueller. If you're here using Meshery, wonderful. If you're here more like contributing to the project, wonderful. If it's that latter, if you're here contributing to the project, I will suggest that when I ask a question like, hey, does anybody want to help on this thing? Why else are you here? If you're here to contribute and you're not, and you're on the call and you're interested, like maybe you're working on some other stuff, but if you're not, like people like Victor just asking me like, hey, what's that internship about? Maybe I want it, maybe I don't. Do I need to be contributing? That's the same question I get asked 500,000 times every hour. And it's a wonderful question. I'm so pleased that people ask it. My response is, how do you know if you want the internship unless you've been contributing? Maybe Lee's a complete and total jerk, and so is everybody else here. And so I don't even want to be around these people. Or maybe they're really helpful and spend an hour trying to instruct and help and uplift and support. Or maybe I don't like GitHub workflow actions or any of this stuff. Maybe I'm really interested, maybe I'm not, but like, yeah, participate, figure it out. I'm suggesting to all of you right now in a very supportive, slightly uncomfortable for some of you way, suggesting that like, for you to ask yourselves, what are you doing here? What are you doing? What's your goal? And be very selfish. I encourage you to. And then let's help you do that. Because I bet those selfish goals are aligned with things that we're trying to accomplish. Kind of an awkward thing, and not everybody asks people that. Like, yeah, shit. That's why we're the #1 place for internships. Like, shit, let's kick ass. Let's go do some stuff together. So if you're going to be here, be here. Like, let's do something. So good. So Jarens, you're going to make sure very quickly that we're auto committing the output of our tests, and the format isn't going to work, and that's fine. But just go make a mess, go do something, go get comfortable, and we'll course correct as we go. If you're into front end things, man, I would encourage you to pair up with Jarens, just like on Jekyll, how we're going to take those results and present them. To Shlok's point, it's like, does this data even fit on the screen anymore? Also, back to Lee's point when he was talking to himself, saying, oh, maybe the compatibility matrix stuff is different than like the feature functionality test results. Maybe those should be 2 different reports. We'll probably need a new table for that. So there's an opportunity as well. Now, good. Back to you guys. Thanks for letting me help, hopefully.
I guess. Thank you, Lee. Everyone got to learn something new regarding adapters. I think. Okay. So moving on, still have time. So Senthil, discussing. You have a topic on discussion on usage of ID versus the name label for selectors. You wanna go ahead?
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, yesterday Lee suggested to use ID instead of using like cross chains and the name label. And I have visited the playwright best practices section. They have mentioned that we can use either get by role using the name label, as well as we can use the get using the database ID whenever we can query the DOM element without by using the get by text or get by role. So my question is whether we should more with the get by role or like this kind of querying elements, or can we move with the get by ID? If we are concerned about like things will be changes we can use clock.
Yeah. Your voice is breaking in between, so it's hard to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but I get what he's trying to say, which is he's asking the same question again, and the answer is you don't want to, you know what sucks worse than having to write tests for some people is having to deal with flaky tests, is having to, and Senthil isn't even here to listen to it, so he can watch the recording, I suppose. If you write when you write code, you want to write it so that it's easy to maintain, that it's robust, that it avoids bugs. In the same way, if you're going to invest time into writing a test, you want to make it so that it's easy to maintain, so that it's not fragile, so that when someone in the UI changes the label on a button from submit to post, that doesn't break your test, because guess who's going to get the issue? Guess who's going to get the bug assigned to them? The dude that wrote the test or what have you. And it's just a ton of time spent chasing tails. Instead of using like the label, something that is likely to change at some point, perhaps if there was just an attribute of that element, an ID, or almost any other attribute, especially one that we make up and give it a unique identifier. Test name ID equals test ID equals blah, blah. There's right. HTML is extensible in terms of the fact that you can put in your own attributes in tags. I would submit to you that that's probably one of the least fragile. That's one of the anti-fragile things to do. So we can point this discussion back to Senthil and suggest that, suggest that we're going to have to give him further guidance. And I guess, Jarens, this would be the same guidance for all of us, which is what we should probably go ahead and use some unique HTML attribute. And Uzair should be telling us this, really, because he's supposed to be leading this area. Some special attribute with a test name. But that test name, that moniker, like check Kubernetes button, Kubernetes cluster button, some little moniker that identifies that. It'll like be tracked in, guess what? A spreadsheet that lists out all the features that we're going to test. And we don't have to keep the status of the test results in the spreadsheet. We're going to be publishing those to the docs. That's what we've been talking about. But in the spreadsheet, we might just say, oh, there is such a feature called connect to Kubernetes and remove and unconnect from Kubernetes and on down the line. And for each of those, maybe that's test number one, or maybe it's just test connect -Kubernetes something. And we just use that in the ID of the ID or whatever attribute makes sense on an element. And then you've got traceability from the fact that these are our features and what we've implemented, what we're testing, that traceability between them, that foreign key is a word that we were using earlier. And being anti-fragile. So when someone changes the name on the label of the button, it doesn't matter. By the way, in the UI, we already have unique monikers. What are those unique monikers, Uzair?
In the UI, so can you repeat the last part of
Yeah, it's castle, right? We already yep. Yeah. So please bring this up. So Senthil will need more explicit direction.
Yeah, I will direct it.
Okay. And the same for Jarens as we go to refine the convention by which we write these tests. Every button in the UI is already assigned a unique identifier. Have you guys seen those in the UI?
I already see some with the test ID item.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it says test ID or not. Like, I don't know that I've ever even looked to see. But we have a permission framework in which we assign a unique moniker to each and every element, each and every worthwhile element on the page. Like a button, basically, like a button is a good example. Every button on the page should have a unique ID. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we want to identify this button, this chip, rather than looking for this text, which would change based on whatever cluster you're connected to, we would want to look for some other identifier that doesn't change. Using the class names, that's no good. this data-cy. Oh, that's interesting. Chip context name. That might be something good to hone in on. Good. We need to give some more explicit guidance, I think. So
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Lee, again. Moving on, I think we are on time. We'll cover the other items on the next to next week on Meshery's Build and CI release meeting. Uh, I'll wait for 5 seconds if someone has something important that needs to be discussed at this moment, or else we'll end up the call. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining today's meeting. Make sure if your item is not covered to go and write the item inside Slack, and we should be able to help you. Uh, that's all. Thank you.
thanks, Lo. See you guys.